Sorry to say we're over capacity, so for those who do not have a seat, unfortunately, I mean, you will have to find a place probably elsewhere, or you can sit on the stairs, but there are screens next door in the riverside where you were, where you had the lunch. So welcome on behalf of CEPS, welcome to see you so numerously on our 5th IDEAS Lab. Europe back on track after other IDEAS Labs which discussed reconstructing Europe, or is EU fit for purpose? No, we seem to be back on track, and you have seen the tracks everywhere. Again, welcome on behalf of the entire CEPS team. Also welcome on behalf of all the sponsors who made this possible. I assume the President has arrived, the President of the European Commission, to give the opening speech to our 5th IDEAS Lab. I'm waiting for the Chairman of CEPS to give you his opening words, and then to give the floor to the President of the Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, to give the opening words to our 5th IDEAS Lab. So again, from my perspective, welcome, and it's a pleasure to see you all. We want to have a good debate during these 2 days. Debate in these plenary sessions, but also debates in these special sessions which we'll have after this and tomorrow morning. We will try to stop in time, let's say, to give you the time to move to the different lab sessions. So study your program carefully, that you know where you need to go. And with this, I think I can invite our chairman, Joaquin Almunia, to take the stage and introduce the President of the Commission. So welcome to Joaquin, and pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, Karel. Dear President of the Commission, dear friends attending this new edition of IDEAS Lab, Europe back in track. We are very happy that we are able to have this motto in connection with the reality of the European Union and in connection with the reality of the integration process. I would like to say many things, but I will refrain myself because the President of the Commission has come to inaugurate this edition of IDEAS Lab. I am very happy. I want to thank Jean-Claude Juncker for coming here in a very, very busy day, the day before a European Council and the day where a lot of meetings are taking place in Brussels. So thank you very much, Jean-Claude, for coming, and the floor is yours.
Dear Joaquin, ladies and gentlemen, and looking into the room, dear friends, because many of you are not unknown in my personal agenda. But I will not mention all my friends here because some of my friends would be surprised that I'm considering them as being my friends. So I will refrain from that. I would like to start by thanking the Center, and especially my dear friend Joaquin, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be with you today for your annual conference. Whenever you are starting a speech, you have always to say that's a great pleasure to be where you are. Normally this is a lie, but this time it happens to be true. I had the pleasure to know and to work with Joaquin for almost as long as I have been in politics. That's a long moment ago. In your case, too. We were both, that was a special period, ministers for labor at the same time in the 1980s. He was in government in 86 when Spain took its rightful place in our union. And we later worked closely together. He as a Commissioner for Economic and Monetary Affairs, and myself as a President of the Eurogroup. That was not always a pleasure, because we had many controversial debates, but at the very end, he lost. But he is a convinced European and a proud Spaniard, always ready to stand up for our union, and he did it again and again. There are plenty of reasons for us to be positive today, just as the title of your conference is suggesting. It is not so long ago that our union was in danger of sleepwalking from one crisis to another without waking up. This was the alarm call, in fact, we needed. Since then, we have slowly but surely turned the page from this so-called poly-crisis. And we have been able to do so by being united and by delivering on things that matter. This has been my priority since the day the Commission took office. We have already delivered 80% of the initiatives, 368 out of 460 to be precise, that we said we would when we took office. We had some luck along the way, but we also made our own luck. When faced with the wake-up call, Europe's leaders and institutions came together. We chose unity. Together, we chose to rally around a common positive agenda and renew our vows to our union. And the results start to speak for themselves. And the economy in our union is now growing healthy. Employment is at an all-time high and unemployment at a 9-year low. We are a union of solidarity. In 2016 alone, we offered asylum to 3 times as many refugees as the US, Australia, and Japan combined. That's what we are calling the European fortress, 3 times more than the US, Australia, and Japan combined. And thanks to our proactive European approach, we were able to reduce arrivals to our shores by 63% in 2017. There are many other examples I could choose to show how Europe is indeed back on track. But my message today is that we cannot slow down. Europe must now press the accelerator. We still have a lot to do. Between now and next summer, when Europeans take the pulse, we must deliver on the reform of the Economic and Monetary Union, secure our borders, overhaul our asylum system, get back to Schengen, complete the digital single market, bring the Western Balkans closer to our union. If we achieve this, our end destination will be a more united, democratic, and stronger union at 27. By the time European leaders meet at a special summit on Europe Day 19 in Sibiu, Romania, and there we must be able to show our citizens that this new Union of 27 works for them. The Commission will be full steam ahead until the very last day of our mandate. And starting tomorrow, European leaders will meet 19 times in the next 18 months to tackle the issues that matter the most to our union. And since we are on the eve of the first of those 19 meetings, I want to touch on the importance of tomorrow's discussions, in particular on the new multi-annual financial framework. I see it as an opportunity for Europe leaders to send a clear message that Europe is not only back, but that it really means business. Every 7 years, Europe has to decide on a new budget for our union. It is time for decisions. It is about deciding what kind of Europe we want, about what we want our union to be able to deliver. First, we must agree on our priorities. Then we can talk about numbers, about figures. It should not be the other way around. And if we have ambitious goals, then our budget should be equally ambitious. Last week, we spelled out in black and white the choices that the European Union faces. Let me give you a concrete example. When we ask Europeans what their top priority is, securing our borders consistently comes out as the first or second answer. So we must decide now how to deliver on that. We could, for instance, choose to maintain the European Border and Coast Guard as it is. Or we could upgrade it so it has more staff, more tools, a bigger role in returns. Alternatively, we could transform into a fully fledged border management system with 100,000 EU staff. Each of these options are debated and are discussed, but each of those options comes at a price. The first of those options, maintaining the system we have, would need an 8 billion euro investment in the next period of 7 years. The second, upgrading the border control, would need between 20 and 25 billion euro. And the third, having 100,000 staff, EU staff, would need 150 billion euro. We must decide what it is we want to achieve. And then we must come back to the resources we need to do this. And to do that, we need member states to change the way they think about the European budget, a budget that only accounts for around 2% of public spending in Europe. There is unanimity in the Council. We have those who do not want to pay more, and we have those who don't want to receive less. That's the only piece of unanimity we have in the Council. But these two things are not really swimming in the same channel. So the logic has to change. We need a budget that matches our ambitions. For instance, we want to be world leaders in renewable energy and get ahead of the curve on new technologies. If we want our union to have a role in that, we must give ourselves the tool we need to make it happen. The next budget will have to be large enough to manage new priorities and at the same time plug the gap left by the United Kingdom's withdrawal. That may mean that some pay more. We have to be honest enough to say this now, before the debate will start. And on the same note, member states must know the value of the budget as well as they know the cost of it. We can all be net beneficiaries. European money invested in one country or one region has, of course, a value far beyond one border. But tomorrow will not be a time to make final decisions, but it will be an important moment to show our willingness to swiftly agree on an ambitious and flexible and simplified budget for our future. As I said earlier, Europe must now go full steam ahead. Delays on our journey are not an option. For the last budget, a slow agreement proved very costly. At this time, back in December 2013, the fact that we were not able to agree earlier cost 5,000 research jobs for every single month that we did not agree. And it could cost up to 600,000 Erasmus places in 2021 if we are not agreeing on the budget before that date. But everyone, all the prime ministers, are saying that we have to increase the number of those being in the Erasmus program. We have to bring the money where our lips are. Too often in Europe, we talk about challenges and forget about opportunities. Equally, we spend too much time discussing intentions rather than results. Now that Europe continues to regain its strength, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to build a stronger, more united and more democratic union we collectively deserve. We should grasp this opportunity with courage and with boldness. This is a time for action, not only for discussion. Last September, delivering the speech on the State of the Union at the European Parliament, I spoke of a union of equals, a union which is open to the Western Balkans, a union with an enlarged euro area, Schengen space, banking union, a union which stands up for fairness in the labour market and that is more accountable and able to take decisions in a quicker and more effective way. This union, the one I'm speaking of, is not abstract. We can deliver on it now without treaty changes. This is why I set out a roadmap to Sibiu and why leaders also agreed on an agenda to get us there. We are now fully focused on making sure Europe stays on this track. We must take it step by step, starting tomorrow. But just as those who set out on this journey 60 years ago, we must never lose sight of where we want to go. Let's go together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your speech and for being here with us today, President Juncker. It's an honor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. With President Juncker on stage, Joaquin Almunia, who has been introduced to you already, and our director, Daniel Groß. My name is Sophia Russak, and I am researcher at CEPS Institutions Unit. And I will be running you now through the remainder of this session. Now, we would like to engage you all as much as possible. So we thought about 3 ways. Or everybody who wants to step in, let's put it like that. And I'm sure that many of you would like to pose questions to the president. So we thought about 3 ways. You can either use Slido, which has been introduced already to you by my colleague Steven Blockmans. For this, you go to slido.com. You'll see it on the screen. You just have to enter the event code, CEPS Lab 18, and then you can pose your questions. And also, you can vote on questions that other people posted. And that way it's, of course, a nice indicator for us to see which questions to prioritize. Second, of course, the classical way, please give me a hand sign and we'll pass you a microphone. And thirdly, we'll also have an eye on our Twitter wall. But before we come to this, I would like to ask Mr. Almunia and Mr. Groß for immediate reactions on the speech of President Juncker that we just heard. Mr. Almunia, may I ask you?
Okay, thank you very much, Sophia. Thank you very much to the President, to Jean-Claude, for his speech. From a pro-European perspective, of course, I know him, as he said, since many years, and he was always at least as pro-European as I was when I was young, and we continue to be there. And we know, because of our common experience, he as president of the Eurogroup over 6 years, and at that time I was Commissioner for Economic Affairs, attending every month the Eurogroup meetings. I know how important it is to complete the economic and monetary union architecture, taking good note of the lessons from the crisis. Some important decisions have been adopted, but some others are still pending. And you, in your report, the 5 Presidents' report, mention a lot of decisions that are still waiting and a strategy to advance towards the completion of economic and monetary union. Last year, your Commission published a report developing the white paper, giving the same ideas, but with, if I may, with more urgency to adopt decisions. Recently, the Commission adopted again communications and some initiatives, but we are waiting for the result of the referendum in Germany. We are waiting for the relaunch of the Franco-German
coalition or axis. To what extent you can give us optimism that after the 4th of March, with the referendum in Germany and with elections in Italy, and before the end of the term of your Commission, many of the crucial ideas that you wrote in your report and in your documents can be agreed. You are optimistic on this, and we should be more realistic and wait for the next cycle after the European elections to follow up the insights and the initiatives you propose.
When it comes to Europe, I'm preventing myself for having illusions, because every time I had illusions, I lost them immediately. So better not to be over-optimistic. The beginning of March will be a very important week in the European Union. We have the outcome of the so-called referendum of the SPD in Germany. We have the Italian elections. I'm more worried by the outcome of the Italian elections than by the outcome of the voting of the SPD members. But we have to prepare ourselves for a worst scenario. The worst scenario could be no operational government in Italy after having a minority government in Spain, because the socialists in Spain are even weaker than they were during your time. So, combining all these uncertainties, SPD, Italian elections, minority governments here and there, Spain is not the only country to be in that situation. We could have a strong reaction of financial markets in the second week of March. So we are preparing this scenario. As far as the proposals are concerned, the Commission has put forward. I really do think that we have now a window of opportunity in Europe, and we should use this virtuous period of 6, 8, 9 months to come to further reaching conclusions.
Daniel, may I ask you, or would you like to? Daniel, would you like to share your thoughts?
I will not discuss about the situation of my party in Spain with the president.
Don't do it because I know the numbers.
But there's
Another day in private.
Yeah. There's always another election coming which might have new results. President Juncker, again, many thanks for your speech, which I think illustrates well the difficulties we have in Europe to translate our lofty ambitions into reality. And as you said, the budget is one expression, or should be one expression, of our priorities. But you also mentioned security is on the top of the agenda for citizens and on the bottom of our budget. 70% of the budget is too old policies, and even among the remainder, security is not really the first item. But of course, your ideas, can one change that? And you outlined 3 different scenarios at 3 different levels of ambition. And that raises 2 questions for me. The first obvious one is, which one would be your choice, if you want to tell us? And the second point is it only a question of money, but not also a question of mechanisms? Let's take spending on external security with the European Coast and Border Guard. To me, the mechanism looks much more like a reinforced Frontex.
A reinforced what?
Frontex. Yeah. More intergovernmental. Does it make sense to pump a lot of money into such an intergovernmental mechanism? If one makes the choice that Europe should be more active in protecting our external borders, is it not just a choice of question of money, but also of new mechanisms? Should one not therefore say, with this package, more money, we also need a new mechanism, more competences?
Yes, yes and no. I was delivering a speech I referred to that minutes ago on the 13th of September last year in the European Parliament, where I was trying to convince those being there and those listening from the outside that we can have major changes in the decision-making process of the European Union without treaty changes. For instance, there is one article, I think 37.1 or something like that, enabling the European Council to decide by unanimity, to decide by qualified majority in the future on defense, on foreign policy, on social policy, on taxation. I don't have the impression that the leaders were very enthusiastic about that idea, because it would change the perimeter of European sovereignty in a rather drastic way. You are saying, like your think tank is sometimes saying without having thought from A to the end of the alphabet, that we are financing via the European budget for 70% of the volume of the budget old policies. Is cohesion policy really an old policy? This allows countries lagging behind to catch up. What we are investing via the cohesion budget in countries, as far as the results of these investments are concerned, are shared by all the member states. I am of the opinion that we have to reduce the volume of the cohesion budget and of the common agriculture policy. When I started my political life in this town, I was a young minister of budget back in '85. Then the agricultural part of the budget was 70%. We are far from that after all the reforms we went through, far away from that number. So if we are cutting, as people are saying, in the cohesion policy field and the agricultural field, we have to do it for at least 15–20%. If we are not doing this, we have to reduce by 45% all the other policies financed by the European budget. So there is a clear choice. Either we are reducing in what we are calling older policies, or we have to reduce research, innovation, Erasmus, security, defense, things like that, so-called new policies. I'm in favor of having a pragmatic approach, some cuts where needed, simplification where possible, and the launch accompanied by the needed financial instruments for so-called new policies. Having said this, I have no illusions.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the debate so far. If you agree, I would like to open the floor for your questions. Could I have the slider on the screen? So again, you have 3 ways to pose your questions, and I would actually like to start with one of the questions that arrived us here on via Slido, because already 17 people voted this question to the very top of the list. President Juncker, youth is the most pro-European generation ever. How can the EU ensure that our views are better heard, for instance, in the MFF discussions?
I like some initiatives, some movements which have taken place in the last months, Impulse for Europe and things like that, but I don't think that the now young generation is the most pro-European generation ever. In 46, 82, 52, that was a very pro-European generation, for good reasons. They have been soldiers. They have lost their beloved one. That's a totally different atmosphere today. So although I do tend to admit that the younger amongst us are more pro-European than the older, it's not the most pro-European generation we have known. I think having these citizen dialogues and other contexts, because I'm not sitting there blind and stupid at the Berlaymont, which is an ugly building, by the way, I'm listening to what people are saying. I'm receiving 800 letters per day, so I'm trying to understand what is happening. The young generation wants to be part of this Erasmus ambition. We have had till today 9 million young Europeans having taken part in these Erasmus programs. By the way, the immediate result was 1 million babes. So that was the most libido promoting program the European Commission has ever had. 1 million European babies were born out of this experience. If we want to double the number, because only a small number of young Europeans are taking part in this program, this is very costly. If we want to triple it, we are talking about billions. Now the cost is 14 billions. Well-used money. Double it, triple it, you know immediately what the impact on the general budget of the European Union will be. But we have to do that, because we have to bring people closer together. We are ignorance when it comes to other countries. What do the Spanish know about North Finland? And what do the inhabitants of the northern part of Finland know about Sicily? We have to bring people closer together, and we have to pay the price for that, because if we are not doing so, we'll pay another price.
But do you think that Erasmus is enough to make the youth voice heard? Because this is obviously what this question's aimed for. Do you think Erasmus is enough?
No, nothing is ever enough. Together with Joaquin, when we were young Labour ministers, we started a whole debate on the social dimension of the European Union. We have now adopted the so-called social pillar. This is important because we are losing the acceptance of the European idea by ordinary people. They are as noble as the academics are. We have to take this social ambition very seriously. It's not a social dream, it's a social necessity.
Thank you. I would like to take a look at the audience. Okay, I have a lady with a pink jacket right in the front. Please state your name, affiliation, and pose a brief question. We need a microphone right in the front here, please. Don't we have... Oh, yep.
Thank you. My name is Geneviève Pons, and I am from Institut Jacques Delors. I have two questions for you, Mr. President, both of them about citizenships. First of all, coming back to Erasmus. Erasmus has a lot of advantages, but also is focused on very educated people. So my first question would be, would you be in favor of an Erasmus Pro focused on other socioeconomic categories to attain everybody in this generation? That's the first question. And second question, in a more democratic union, citizens' opinion should play, of course, whatever the age or socioeconomic category, a stronger role. What do you think about the citizens' consultations?
I'm in favor of both. We are trying to broaden the scope of the Erasmus program, taking in apprentices and other social categories. And as far as the participation of citizens is concerned, we launched a program of so-called citizen dialogue. We had so far 450 or something like that, citizen dialogues all over Europe. I have asked the commissioners to circulate all over the place. We had, as commissioners, 650 meetings with national parliaments, with national social partners. So we are not sitting there waiting for good weather. We are doing on the ground what has to be done. Now we want to continue this experience of the citizen dialogue, enriched by the proposals of the French president on the democratic convention. That's exactly the same than the citizens' dialogue, but it will be organized in a more systematic way.
Thank you. Daniel?
I wanted to add, if you allow me, a question on this youth. The youth has always been, or for a long time, been more pro-European. But unfortunately, what we have seen is when they get older, they don't stay that way. At least that's apparently the case. Isn't that really the problem we have to deal with? Not so much that we get the youth enthusiastic about Europe, maybe they are already, but that we make sure that those who get older stay pro-European.
Yes, that's in fact an interesting phenomenon. I cannot explain to myself. I'm taking the example of my parents. Unfortunately, they passed away last year. They were very pro-European. I was educated in a very pro-European atmosphere. But when they reached the age of 70, let's say 75 because I'm closer to 70, they suddenly started to question a certain number of things they never questioned before. And this is leading me to the consideration that we have to explain and to re-explain again and again what Europe integration really is about. We are taking peace and welfare as normal things, as gifts, but we have to have those who are watching us to understand that we have to do something to keep Europe as a place, as the place of organized peace and as the place of welfare. When I'm traveling around the world, Africa, Asia, I'm struck by the fact that then I'm entering a territory where the European Union is very popular, really beloved. And when I'm coming back to Brussels, in this valley of this Lachymarum Valley, I wanted to introduce Latin in our conversation, yeah. Not only English, because we are living under this Shakespearean diktat. We have to change this by rediscovering that there are other languages than English in the European Union. Lachymarum Valley means a valley of tears. In Brussels, people are crying. In the rest of the world, people are admiring the European Union.
President Juncker, I have one question here. One of our participants obviously wanted to spice up the debate a little bit. Can I have the Slido, please? Who needs Spitzenkandidaten if Martin Selmayr has won the upcoming EP elections before the campaign even started?
I like jokes, mainly when they are improving. You can have, there are steps to do in order to have the jokes improving. I appointed Martin Selmayr, Secretary General of the Commission, Clara Martinez, who is sitting here, as my new Chief of Cabinet. I'm doing everything for Spain I can do. But Martin Selmayr is a high official. He has no political role, so I don't understand the question which was suggested by part of the German press to you this morning.
Okay, somebody else from the audience. Yes, the gentleman here in the second row. We need a microphone, please. Please state your name and affiliation, and please one brief question, because we have many more people who want to like to ask a question.
Thank you, President Juncker. My name is Mete. I represent an organisation called My Life, My Say in the UK, which is on a mission to secure a better Brexit for young people. I'm sorry to have to be the Brit that I have to ask you this question about Brexit, but my question was, given that young people in the UK overwhelmingly voted to remain and still want to have access to a lot of the opportunities in the European Union and still want to maintain that close relationship, what message would you send out to the British youth today?
Could you repeat the gist of the question?
Yeah. What message do you have to British youth that still want to have access to a lot of the benefits and opportunities in the European Union in light of Brexit happening?
It would have been better, and for the British and for the Europeans, if they had taken another decision.
Thanks for this snappy response to that question. Okay, one lady here was raising her arm right in the beginning already, so please.
Yes, hello, President Juncker. Sandrine Dixon de Clercq. I'm a special advisor on low carbon solutions. I'm also the granddaughter of one of the first fonctionnaires in the European Commission. And coming back to your point around the switch in mentality as we get older. I can even see my grandfather starting to feel quite fearful of the shift after the war of moving towards more and more members of the European Commission and of the European project. So my question to you is, I wonder if there isn't an innate fear.
Our own communication, the masterpieces, the performances of European policies. What the point is that all over the place, and I'm seeing this day after day, you have more negative articles and opinions expressed when it comes to Europe than positive descriptions. And at least in football, when your team wins, you are applauding. If the European Union wins, nobody is applauding. We have to change that.
Thank you. I would like to pose one institutional question, as I'm an institutional nerd myself. Does it make sense to launch the lead candidate system before Macron's En Marche movement has decided about its political family?
France is one member state.
Many thanks. We have the chance for many questions here today because President Juncker is short and snappy. Maybe somebody more in the back. Can we have a microphone a little bit in the back? There on the left corner is somebody raising a hand with a piece of paper.
Stop it.
John Peterson, University of Edinburgh and CEPS. Monsieur le Président, thank you for being with us. At the beginning of your mandate, you designated your commission as a political European Commission. Do you think you have demonstrated precisely what that means?
Do you think that you are understanding what we meant? I was saying this commission has to be a political commission because those we are interacting with are political institutions. The European Parliament, national parliaments, the Council of Ministers, the European Council, and the specialized council formation, so surrounded by politicians. Why should the Commission be the only body to be neutral, not political, not future-oriented? That's what we are doing. Sometimes against the reluctance of all member states or of some member states. When we were investing so many efforts in the remain of Greece in the euro area, some of the governments were saying, that's not your job. It is our job because we are political.
Can I follow that up a bit? Because the Commission, of course, has also the guardian of the treaty and the guardian of the rules which are in the treaty. And Joaquin had to enforce a couple of these rules in the past. Now, maybe you meant something different, but when you announced a political commission, then at least some people had the impression, okay, there are rules, but in their application, which have always political consequences, we will actually take political considerations into account. And that, of course, leads some people to think, yes, but then the decisions of the Commission will no longer be impartial.
Are national parliaments, national governments, not respecting the rules because they are political? I don't see the contradiction between being political and applying the rules. We are applying the rules. Sometimes we are changing the rules. As far as the Stability Pact, for instance, is concerned, we are adding elements of flexibility to the way of interpreting the Stability Pact, but this is not a putsch. These things have been announced and finally accepted by the governments which are political, and they are respecting the rules, or are they respecting the rules they committed to when it comes to the European Union. Because we have, I don't know how many, because I'm not following this day by day, 1,400 infringement procedures against member states, and I was reading this more.
Governments have a tendency, as you know, to decide collectively to adopt rules, and then individually not to respect them. And your task is to call it order.
We are the guardian in an equal way towards all member states. When I started, I was Prime Minister for 19 years of a Grand Duchy, the only Grand Duchy existing worldwide. every time at the European Council, the Commission was blocking member states by drawing their attention to the rules we have. The answer was, you are not political enough. Now we are too political. Je m'en fous.
Thank you very much. Where's the microphone now? Okay, I would like to take a question in the area of this microphone, please. So anybody? Nobody, no? The gentleman over there, please, could you pass it on? Please pose one brief question.
Yes, my name is Tomasz Kozlowski. I work for the EIF. I implement Juncker plan and the FC. Today, on innovation and competitiveness, do you think there is room for Juncker plan for agriculture?
I'm happy that you are referring to the Juncker plan. When we started this experience, inventing new financial instruments, trying to give a collective answer to the missing investments we had in Europe, the plan was called Juncker plan. Not by me, but by all those who thought that this would be a total failure. And so they wanted to pre-identify for the figure. As far as the internal market is concerned, we were able to mobilize 152 billion in investment funds all over the place. Did I understand correctly that you were managing agricultural policy in combination with what you are calling the Juncker plan, asking if the Juncker plan is not running the risk to take money away from the common agricultural policy, or how do I have to understand your question?
It's very simply. We talked about the budget, about the fact that the agricultural policy is funded by grants. What if we can save the grants and redeploy them in different places, but plug the hole with financial instruments like we've done today together on the innovation space?
I'm not sure that I've understood the question, sorry.
Can we replace grants with something else, like more private type funding?
Yeah, okay. You are improving your case. The typical element of the Juncker plan is that we have chosen a totally different way of financing. Instead of giving grants, money for free beer for everyone, we have changed the rules and we have invented financial instruments, being able to multiply the effect of the use of budgetary money. The money we are taking out of the budget for the FC is a very small result. It's 15, 17 times. I've seen, by the way, that...
are fully working again. Credit is plentiful. Do we need still a European plan for investment?
I would prefer that we wouldn't need European money and a European investment plan for this purpose. What I have seen in the last 24 months is that, yes, money was there, credit was there, but you are saying credit is available, but it is not used to the full amount it could be used. This European approach, mainly transbordering investment projects, energy, mobility, transport, is only possible if the European Union is taking the lead. That's member states are asking us. If 2 or 3 Baltic states together with Poland intend to launch a gas project, an energy project, they are coming to Brussels, to this damn political commission, asking us, could you please us to narrow our points of view. So I really do think that this is needed, that will be needed in the next years.
Thank you. I would like to go back to Slido for one question. Let's see which question has been rated on the very top. How can we ensure you stay in touch with citizens' concerns on the ground that citizens are sufficiently involved and kept correctly informed?
That's why we are organizing the citizens' dialogues. That's why my friend Macron has launched this idea of having democratic conventions. So we are in close contact with the citizens of Europe. That's one point. The other is that I would like the civil society to be more active and more proactive when it comes to Europe. I would like to see the artists taking part in the European debate. And I would like the European leaders to talk differently about the European Union that they are doing for the time being, and as they were doing over the last decades. I was sitting, I think, in 150 European councils. But in fact, when listening to the prime ministers giving their press conference, when reading the national papers, El País, Die Welt, Le Monde, I must have attended at least 1,000 European councils. Because what prime ministers are saying when they are describing the results is very different from one press room to the other. We have to change that. We have to take citizens by far more seriously, telling them what really did happen. That's the reason why I'm a great fan of a more developed transparency. I would like governments to announce publicly how they voted and why they voted in the way they voted, instead of having this hidden council ministers meeting that's not in accordance with basic democratic principles.
But this, of course, also has a little bit of a forced element. So what else could the EU institutions do to make the member states show more loyalty, true loyalty towards the European integration project? Loyalty? Mm-hmm. How can member states buy into this more? What could the EU institutions do for that?
But I'm reflecting on this question day after day, and even during night, if I don't have anything other to do. I think that we have to change our communication policy, although I don't know how, because we are publishing thousands of organizations.
Well, there is a gentleman here in the middle. Could you please pass this on? Yes, over there. Please tell us your name, affiliation, and one question. Yes.
Hi, my name is Sebastiano Putato, and I'm from the Young European Federalists. You've been giving us this line about needing to decide for the priorities of the budget before we decide for the money. Yet, you're going to present the MFF regulations, setting out the amounts, before the sectorial regulations. Isn't that a contradiction?
No.
How so? It is, in fact.
Because
it is. You're not pushing.
Seriously, we are discussing priorities for years now. Development, aid, security, defense, the energy priorities. We have to discuss this in the light of the next coming years. Where can we reshuffle? Do we mean it serious when it comes to security, when it comes to defense, when it comes to Erasmus, when it comes to energy, when it comes to digital? These things have to be made clear before we will be able to discuss figures. I had to share 2 European councils as a Prime Minister where we were discussing financial perspectives. And we always started by the figures. And then we are inventing priorities according to the figures. I would like to behave the other way around. First priorities, then money, and if the money is not available, change the priorities, not the other way around.
Thank you. I would like to take another question in that name. Got lost. Oh, there it is.
Paul Frisvold, a European from Norway. The United Kingdom doesn't seem to know what they want. Switzerland is in a very difficult situation. Norway, we are more concerned about the Olympic Games than EU membership. When would you consider proposing an idea for a multi-speed Europe?
First, Norway should change its priorities. Second, I'm not a great fan of the multi-speed Europe. I'm in favor of taking decisions at 27, always when possible. If this is not possible, then those who are willing to achieve bigger progress, they should be free to do so. But I would like the 27, including those who are not willing to achieve further progress, be sitting in the room and discussing, because even decisions taken by a few are impacting the European prosecutor or pattern at 27. It's better.
I
have to go.
Pardon. I have one question here on a topic which has been debated also quite passionately in the past, which is the transnational list. Is the rejection of the transnational list in the European Parliament a backlash to a more democratic, citizen-centered Europe? Why did the EPP overwhelmingly reject? And maybe I can add also, why was the Commission itself not very passionate about it?
Yeah. Communication, to be successful, presupposes that people are listening. I said in September at the European Parliament, in the framework of this speech on the State of the Union, that I have the greatest sympathy possible for transnationalists. The EPP and others voted against, others voted in favor.
Of Europeans, for the list to be financed.
I see you coming.
So for this, let's support. Visit us. Meetings today, the European integration, the European values.
Letter.
Yes.
More or less a little bit.